14, and 12.
All right, good morning. We're the 2021 Board of Equalization and Review for Union County. We have been appointed by the County Commission to hear any and all taxpayers with respect to concerns or complaints regarding the valuation of the property for tax purposes. Property owners appearing before the Board of Equalization and Review have the right to a fair and equitable hearing. The Board of Equalization and Review has been charged with ensuring that the proper legal principles have been applied in a valuation dispute for tax purposes. The format is as following. The clerk calls the case and locates the property or explains the situation of its personal property. The appellant presents his or her case. The assessor's office offers their defense. Both parties will be given the opportunity to review or conclude their comments. All questions should be directed to me or the board. The board will rule on the case or table it and inform the taxpayer when it will be reopened. The taxpayer will be notified in writing of the board's decision. By statute, the burden of the proof is on the taxpayer to demonstrate that the assessment is erroneous. I'd ask that you please silence your cell phones. So when we hear your case, we will rule on the case in the same order when the proceedings end. At that point, we won't take any more questions from you. Your questions will be in this initial hearing. So any questions? Let's get started.
Tab number 7, hearing number 7, parcel 060-48243. Todd Edwards.
Good morning, Mr. Edwards.
Morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear this. I don't know if you have all the documents that you do have all the documents. So I live at 603 Palmerston Lane in Waxhaw. The assessor did their assessment based on two comps. Comp 1 is at 511 Palmerston Lane, which is 2 houses down from me, which is the exact same model home that I have. And the other comp is 309 Ronelay, which is just down the street in the neighborhood and has about 500 less square feet than my home does. So what I did in my evaluation of my property, I took the assessment that the assessor did, and I sort of just reworked the numbers in various ways and came up with an average of the assessment. So one, I had an independent appraisal that was completed on 7/20/2020 that took into consideration the two comps that the assessor had, and that value was $455,000. So from the time of my appraisal to the end of December, I don't know how much the value would have increased, but my independent appraisal took into consideration the two comps that were considered and came up with a value of $455,000, which is 9.3% higher than what the assessor has. So that's the first calculation that I have. And then I took a couple of other calculations based on what my appraisal had. My appraisal had different square footages on my home, the subject home, and on comp 1 and on comp 2 that would be in my favor as to. So what I did is I ran a calculation based on what the assessor had, and then I plugged in my square footages based on the values the assessor had, and I ran what the calculation would be. And so with that, I came down to a value of $467,000 when I ran the square footages of my subject and comp 1 and comp 2 through the assessor's model evaluation. And I ran another average because I believe comp 1 is much more closely related to my home than 309 Palmerston, which has 500 square feet less of livable area on the main living areas. I believe a weighted average should be used in assessing comp 1 to comp 2. So what I did is I took 74% towards comp 1 and 26% towards comp 2. And I did that, and it's based on my appraisal. So when I took those percentages, I took the two values of comp 1 and comp 2, and I said, what percentages do I need to get to come up with the $455,000 value that the appraiser came to? So I believe the appraiser used comp 1 more closely than he used comp 2, and that's how I came up with the percentages of coming up with comp 1 more strongly being relatable to my subject property. So when I did that, the value actually came up to $445,000 when I took a weighted average of the assessments. The next series that I did is I took just really an average of what the assessor did and what my independent appraisal did. And so when I did that, I just came up with a value of $456,000. Now, I also did some adjustments to the assessor's calculations. One, I took out depreciation that the assessor was adding on to the value of my home. All of these homes were essentially built within a 1-year time period, and I don't believe a depreciation adjustment should be made in homes that are so closely related in age. Not only that, comp number 2 was a model home in the neighborhood and was not even lived in by a resident until 2007, which is beyond the time that my home was built, meaning that if a depreciation adjustment would have been done, it would have been done, in my opinion, in my favor, even though that home was technically built before my home. I appreciate your time in evaluating the calculations that I did. So all I did was take all the calculations and then I just averaged them all to say that, okay, no one thing is going to be perfect. So why not just do various methods to come up with the calculations? And I came up with an assessment right around $460,000, which is 9.3% lower than, approximately 9.3% lower than what the assessor has. So in closing, the last thing I really want to emphasize is that the assessor has my home value at 9.3% higher than any actual sale that has actually transpired in the neighborhood. So there is no sale within the neighborhood that can be compared to the value that my home's being assessed at.
Okay. Does you have any questions, Mr. Edwards?
No, except for, you got the appraisal, which is good evidence, which is as of July 2020. And you mentioned just 2 comps that the county has, and we can hear from the county on this, of course, but I'm just seeing more comps than those 2.
There were more comps on my appraisal.
Well,
I just didn't use them.
I'm talking about comps on the county, from the county.
Oh, no.
That are later and after July of 2020.
Okay,
So
from what I was provided by the county,
right,
there were only 2 comps used, and the average was used of those 2 comps to come with the current value that I have at $491,000.
Okay. Yeah,
So
we'll hear from the county and get some clarification on
Okay.
that. That's where I
But
knew that you were referring to 2 comps.
Okay,
The county
right,
had.
but
Okay.
that's where my value stands as of right now, because they reduced my value originally
Right,
from my original appeal. And
okay,
then he provided the two comps that came up with the current value.
okay.
You got any questions, Mike?
Yeah, what was the original cost of your house or your property?
The original cost, I believe it was somewhere around $450,000 in 2006. I'm not the original owner, so I've lived in the home for about 5 years.
What'd you pay for it then?
$378,000. And that was approximately the assessed value at the time. So the assessed value has gone up dramatically, obviously, with the market that it is today compared to when the last revaluation was done.
Right. All right, thank you, Mr. Edwards. We'll hear from the county.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Thank you.
Okay. I provided two compa reports with some comps that you guys should both have. The first one that Mr. Edwards was talking about with the two comps, typically we don't like to just use two comps, but the reason I went this route is because this subject property has a basement. So I pulled the two comps that have basements, comp 1 and 2. I thought those were the most comparable. You can see by the adjustments at the bottom, they're only 5% and 15%. So they were very comparable. To Mr. Edwards' point, comp number 1 is the most comparable house, and it is pulling the most weight on that comp. That's why I used it as comp number 1. So in doing so, I was able to reduce the value from, I believe it was 515 down to the 491,300 at the informal level. And then once Mr. Edwards appealed to the board, I called him. We had several discussions over the phone and on the email and stuff. So I pulled in some more comps, and that's on your second compa report. And I think there are 6 comps that I pulled in the neighborhood. And you can see that the value dropped slightly down to 489 from 491, pulling a couple more comps in. So it did drop a little bit, but that's still, that's still within a very little bit of that first compa report that I used. As far as depreciation, I just want to make that point that the depreciation that we have on every house, whether it's a year apart from the subject or 5 years or whatever, that's part of our schedule of values. So that's the same on every house across the county. So that's not something that I'm going to remove because that just comes from our schedule.
Any questions for the county, Dutch?
I don't think I have any. I'm trying to think on this, well, okay, so I see in the second series of comps you ran, you still pulled in the other two.
Correct, yeah, because they were the most comparable, so I left
got
those
you.
in there. Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
only question I had.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tab number 8, parcel ID number 060-45178, Nicholas Goodwin.
No worries.
Good morning, Mr. Goodwin.
Morning, how are you guys?
Doing fine, thank you.
So just coming here, I didn't put anything, send anything in. I think this is great, the visual, because the only thing I really bought was my lot plan, and I also brought a survey report that I just had from some engineers done from the builder as a result of basically under-engineering my home. So we purchased this home, we moved from a different location about a half mile away in Weddington to this place in Wesley Chapel, right at the start of COVID last year, probably April, May. This home was built throughout the summer. Looking at most of my neighbors and looking at the comps that I was given, and so I had this discussion with the gentleman on the phone when they called me, was my biggest thing was the comps in this area that I was put against was, all my neighbors are at 90 to 90, maybe 4% of their home value purchase of what they were for their tax assessment. I'm sitting at 99.35 or something like that. And then the comps that were done against us were against homes that were, 3 or 4 months down the road that the builder had realized rates are down, and people are, supply, there's no supply out there, so we can basically exploit people that are trying to come into this neighborhood. They're now selling homes for over $150,000 of what they sold. So in June, the home sold for about $700,000. 6 months later, they're selling them for like $850,000, $885,000, just because that's what they're able to do is kind of exploit things. So that's one take. That was one of my arguments with them. And I don't think I was trying to be unreasonable. I was just trying to say, I really think that based off of my neighbors and all the comps that you put out there being 90 to 94%, that I think that's where I fit, somewhere in that middle. I think the value of what we paid for our home, negotiating with the home builder, was a fair value at that time. And so percentage-wise, that's where I was trying to get at. Two, I think this lot that we have is when you look at like a tax assessment or home value of your home, it's really like, what is it really worth to somebody when they come in and look at it? This is one of the last lots that were there. We made the plan basically to move in this neighborhood for our children from our previous location. If you look at the backyard, it's probably one of the least desirable lots out there. So I think that factors into what the actual true assessed value of like what that home is and why what we paid for it was actually fair versus what people are paying for some of these houses in here, or what my neighbors who have, beautiful backyards that they can manicure up and put pools and other things in. There's things that we will never be able to do with that lot plan. So those are some of the points that we were trying to bring light to. Lastly, I didn't put this out there because I think this is kind of proprietary to us, but this is I'll gladly pass around, share it with you guys. I just didn't print it out to leave here. But this is a report from SKA Engineers basically saying they've come and inspected our home 4 times for our home being under-engineered. And their recommendation is to come put 2 new drop girders in our home because there's spans of our house that are going 15 to even 18 feet without any support underneath. The floors are sagging. Deflection is well outside its limits. The wood flooring inside the house is actually separating at 1/8 of an inch in certain points. So we will have to move out of our home for about 6 to 8 weeks and starting sometime in June once we get all this stuff figured out. And that's going to entail a construction company coming in, installing 2 new drop girders underneath our house. All the subflooring, all the flooring on the first floor, regardless of what type of material it is, will be cut out of our home. And that will be replaced. And then all the wood flooring that's up on the second floor will also be taken out. They will also come in and do stuff in the attic to alleviate the deflection that's happening in the attic that is creating separation from the wall and the ceiling. So a lot of conversations. So honestly, my conversation even with the home builder when he came to my house was, I was like, all these issues in my home, I was like, you wouldn't even buy my home. I was like, I basically have a home right now that's unsellable. So to me, that's a huge factor when it comes to like the assessed value of my home in its current state. And it's unknown what it would be like in its post-construction state of these repairs. So that was a lot of our argument for it. If you would like, I'd gladly pass this around, let you guys look at this. I would just prefer not to like leave it here because this is, from it. But it gives you depictions of everything, like how they're going to come in our home and actually put the 2 new drop girders in there. It talks about the recommendations on the subflooring and replacing that because they sat through 6.5 inches of rain last May and June, and the construction company just gave us a bunch of BSs instead of replacing them, which also leads to some of the separation that's happened all throughout our house. I think for my take on that, the lot, the percentage on my neighbors' homes that have, I think, grander lots, and the known issues with our home that we have right now, that I wouldn't be able to sell my home to anybody if they walk in and see it. In addition to, and I'll throw this out there too, there's a lot of visual clues that there's some big mistakes with this. Every bit of baseboard, and I get it, there's going to be some that cracks. Our last home had about maybe 10%, so I give that builder a lot more credit than this one. 100% of my baseboards, my crown molding is cracked and splitting, sometimes up to 1/8 of an inch. And it's not just horizontal separation, it's vertical separation as well. Talked about the spongy floors. We've got cracks in our dining room and our kitchen from the doorways with vertical and diagonal cracks going up the wall. That will all be repaired, hopefully. And so when it comes down to that, that's what I factor into a lot. I've had conversations with Union County as to like, how does all this happen? How does this get past, the inspectors? Thing that I learned in North Carolina is one home inspector. So I'll throw this out there, it's a total sidebar conversation, but I think maybe this is stuff that needs to get kind of discussed amongst the powers that be to have this adjusted. One, subcontractors, they don't have to have license, as I understand it. They can just work under a builder's license, so they may not have to be the most qualified person. Two, they basically took a home plan that is to the right. That white home is the exact same floor plan as ours, just a different front. That was a Bonterra home. This is our builder who bought their plan. And they took the Bonterra plan and reduced it down to minimum viable product. So based off of what the building materials, based on what they think they can get away with, so that's what they did. And as I talked to Union County Inspector, I was like, man, everything I researched and says, the piers support system should be no further than like 8 to 10 feet apart, maybe even closer if it's a heavyweight home, or if there's a lot of weight to the home. Like I said, we got 17 and a half, almost 18 feet, one spot, 15 in another, and all I got from the Union County is we don't inspect your home for quality. We don't inspect it to see like, hey, we think you should put another one here, but we're not here to inspect that. We're here to inspect to make sure it's built per plan.
Let me stop you right there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When did you buy the home?
We bought it we closed October 29th, 2020.
Okay. And what did you pay for the home?
$687.
Well, is your builder gonna do these repairs, and if so, is it gonna be any out of pocket to you?
They are doing the repairs. There is no out of pocket to us because we're within our 1-year warranty. These signs started showing themselves in like 2 weeks.
What do you think the value of your home is? You didn't list the tax value.
I think a 90% of that tax value is fair. It's comparable to the other people in our neighborhood. Obviously, I think my home is worth a lot less than what it is right now. I would say somewhere around like $615, or even less. But
Don't you have any questions?
No, y'all, questions I had, y'all asked. Yeah, I'm good.
Let's hear from the county. Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Mr. Radcliffe,
Hayes.
if I can, like to know if the, thought it was. I'd like to know if the gentleman had got a quote, cost to repair these damages, what the cost to cure would be.
did I? No, because none of that's being shared with me. So the builder has done this engine. I've had the engineer to my house 4 times to finally get all this identified with all their measurements, deflections, and things kept popping up. So they have not shared anything with me, but they will replace all the wood flooring that's on the first floor, all the tile that's also in marble that's in our bathrooms, laundry room, the wood floor that's in our second hallway. They're also coming in the attic, and they're doing something with the plates up on the top to basically nail those down and make sure that allows for the truss system to have some deflection without moving basically the sheetrock and cracking the ceiling anymore. Plus, it's going to cost them per diem. It's also costing them a lot. They got to relocate us. That's the big thing. We still don't even know all this stuff. That's like this timeline is supposed to start hopefully mid-June after our son is able to graduate and we can do the celebration. That's why a lot of the stuff's delayed. I don't have any of the costs because they haven't shared anything with me.
Okay. Let's hear from the county. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin.
Hello again.
Yes, sir.
All right. I guess I'll start. Mr. Goodwin pointed out, I think you asked him that his purchase price was $687,000. Purchased it at the end of October of 2020, so very recent. We have $683,000 on the property, which is $4,000 less than he paid for it. I provided a compa report with the comps in the neighborhood. There were 5 that were used, and that report generated a value of $715,000. So we're well below what the comps tell us. I did speak to Mr. Goodwin, and he did mention some of the structural issues from the builder. And, you know, basically what I talked about with him was, he said that the builder was going to correct them. House is under warranty, so it's no out-of-pocket cost to him. So there was nothing really for me to adjust for that. So just based on that point, unfortunately, with these new houses, and they're being built pretty quickly, we get quite a few permits in for, corrections like that. It's pretty common. So it's nothing that I can make an adjustment on, but really, I just want to reiterate the compa supports our value, and we're under what he paid for it last year.
Does you have any questions for the county?
I do not.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Tab number 11, parcel ID number 071-44198, Mr. Cleveland Barino.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Marino.
I'm here for other property. I didn't realize that this was gonna be on the list. How do I pull up my,
Yeah, I'm sorry, we should ask the county to come out and pull it up for me.
morning, 705.
It's 9-8.
98,
Yeah.
198.
Can hardly see it.
This property, I've been there for 25 years, a little better. And the value of the property, my complaint with this property is that it's almost, 80% more than it was last year. It's okay on my behalf if I can sell it for that. But I'm just looking at, I just don't understand how it could jump that high. It's fine, but like I said, I couldn't get that for it in this development. I'm thinking that the other property that's below us in this Spring Hill area is a new development. And that property over there is like $3,000-4,000. I mean, $400,000 homes. And it made this property jump tremendously. And my neighbors are complaining too. I mean, but like I said, that's not a lot, but if I had to sell this property, there's no way I could get this value out of that house. We love it out there, and that's probably where I die at, because we're not planning on going. We retired and everything, and then taxes keep going up every year, and then bills keep going up being retired. It's kind of tough. So I don't know.
Mr. Marino, what do you think the properties should be valued at from a tax standpoint?
Well, over the years, it's been gone from this to that. I'm saying around 110. But I mean, you look at it, it's like about 80% more in 1 year. Like I said, that's fine, but I don't think I could get that out of it. There's other property I have, that's what I was looking for. It's in the country in Marshall, but I guess that's gonna come up later. So,
Refresh my memory where Spring Hill's at.
Old Charlotte Highway, Stallings, Indian Trail area.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Sir. That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Brino?
Mr. Marino, I mean, there were a number of comps that the county had. Was that shared with you?
No, sir.
Okay, because there appears to be a number of recent sales close to you, that,
Yeah, that's another development. That's in Collinwood. That's one block over.
yeah. Is Spring Hill Drive, Spring Hill Road?
Yes.
Is that in your,
Yes, that's
Oh,
Spring
okay.
Hill, It's Drive, and Spring-
Birchdale?
Birchdale,
Okay,
yes, sir.
okay. 'Cause
Pine Cliff, all
Okay.
that is one area.
okay. I don't have any other questions. Okay.
All right, you got any? Well, thank you, Mr. Brino. We'll hear from the county now.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing this
Doing
morning?
fine, thank you.
Sorry, I did email those comps out and apologize that Mr. Marino wasn't able to get those. But, I mean, the original assessed value on the property is $130,500. I looked at it, actually twice, the informal and then again. I did a compare. I pulled in 6 comps. Some of these comps are 2018 and 2019 sales that I've done a time adjustment to. There's also varying conditions of these homes. Comp number 1 is in good condition, but you can see that there is an adjustment in the depreciation. Comp number 3 is in excellent condition. That sale is in excellent condition. And there's also, you'll see there's a $27,200 adjustment in the depreciation to account for that. Comp number 4 was in fair condition, and it, there again, depreciation is trying to balance those varying conditions out. And this comper come in at 144.7, and that's why I was unable to make a change in value.
What was the former tax value?
Let's see. I'm not sure if I have that. Let's see, here we go. 71,000,
71?
looks like it. Yeah. I believe it was 71,000.
And just for clarification, that was 2015, right?
Yes.
Any questions for the county?
I don't have any.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Tab number 12, parcel ID number 050-39034, Jenny Scott.
Good morning, Ms. Scott.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Thank you.
Not bad for a Monday morning.
Good.
She's passing out the information I brought to you guys. I actually have 2 parcels there. I have 5512 Jewel Drive and 5524, which is the vacant land next to it. I wasn't aware that we would be addressing both today, so I'm only really prepared to talk about 5512. I wasn't, or did not receive the comps that the county used. So I had actually inquired about that, but I never received them. So I'm interested to see what they used. But what I provided for you guys was a comp as of last night of 7 homes in the area that have closed within 6 months. As you can see, the average is 600,000. And if, to me, looking at the comps, we've got a couple that are higher, but they have 7 bedrooms. Well, one that was significantly higher, 7 bedrooms. But if you look at the acreage where I have 4.83, you know, some of these have 10 acres, 11 acres, which I'm sure a lot of the value is in that as well. And I purchased this home in the end of 2018 for $500,000, and it appraised for $500,000 at that time, which I have included the first couple of pages of the appraisal. I have refinanced actually twice since then, and the recertified, or the value was at $505,000. So I, one, would like to know the comps that were used, and secondary, I would like to just try to determine how we went from 500 to 695.
That's any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that you refinanced twice since you purchased the home.
Yes.
Do you have those?
I do not,
appraisals?
because they did not do an actual appraisal, because the other one was so recent, and there had been no changes to the property.
Right, so it wasn't technically reappraised?
No, it just,
Okay.
they
Okay.
certified the
Right,
value. Or
right,
what-
okay.
yeah. I'm sure I have something in writing to that effect, but I did not.
No, that's fine.
Was
That's
not
fine.
an
I
appraisal
understand.
report,
I
yes.
understand. I don't have any other questions.
No. When was, you mentioned 2 appraisals. When was that done? When did
One
you
was
refinance?
done in July of 2020, and the last one was done in December of 2021.
That's, now you got me there.
Yeah, that's-
You went to the future. You said December 21.
Oh, January 2021, I'm sorry. Duh. I'm future thinking here. I still want it to be 505 and the end
It's
of the year.
505.
Yeah, it was 505, both. Kind of like the last gentleman, I'd love to stick a sign in my yard and sell it for $700,000. I'd do it in a minute. And even as a realtor, I don't think it's going to go for that much.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll hear from the county.
Okay, thanks.
Good morning. This parcel is located on Jewel Drive. Let me find my phone. A little bit far. John Craig is on the left here. Old Waxhaw Highway at the top. So kind of, it's in the Western Union Elementary School District. Providence Road's over to the left here. That's the general area. Good with that? I did provide a compa report with 6 comparable sales within 4 miles. They're all of the same quality and similar in size, and they support our value of $695.4. The compa report came in at $705.5. So we left the value the same.
Are there any comparables within walking distance from her
No,
property?
sir, not at that quality level.
Okay.
It's unique in that sense in this part of the county. It's in Western Union Elementary School District, so that's a neighborhood for us. So it's kind of got to go a little bit out to get it.
The biggest adjustments, it looks like in the county comps, of what just, is it the land
Land's going to be an adjustment, yes, sir, at
and the
4.8.
square footage? Right.
There are some square footage adjustments, yes, sir. Her house is a pretty good size. Also unusual for that area.
And her property, is that, it's not really in a development, is it? I mean, a subdivision?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
It's in our a rural neighborhood we call Western Union. It's
Right.
not a specific area.
It's not in a subdivision.
Yeah, because it,
It's just a cul-de-sac
yeah,
road.
'cause it backs up to Queensgate, and it,
It does. Queensgate's off Parkwood School Road,
right.
right there. Parkwood School Road, Queensgate's right here.
I don't think I have any further questions.
Mike, you got anything? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Hang on, Ms. Goodwin. Sir?
Donnie, would you you and Greg both, make copies of those comps for the last two appellants so they can see what was used?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms.
That's
Goodwin.
what I was gonna ask, I wanted to see the.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that is a subdivision, it's Waxhaw Estates, so I don't know if that's.
Waxhaw Estates. Don't you say?
Mr. Chairman,
Where you at? There you are.
yeah, a lot of times, in a little small sub like that, we'll include it into a larger area just so we'll have some comparable sales. So that's why it's included in a bigger neighborhood. But I was going to speak to the topic that came up while Donnie was speaking about the size of the property at 4,500 square foot versus, so that's why he had to go out a little bit further to find comparable properties. The 7 sales that the taxpayer submitted, most of those are under 2,000 square foot. The ones that were, the one that was 2,900 square foot did sell for 710. And then the other 2 that are larger, 6,200 and 6,900, sold for over 1.2 million and 630. So just want to point that out to your point about it being a larger home and him having to go out and find comps.
How many homes are in that area of Waxhaw Estates? Do you have any idea, Ms. Goodwin?
6.
6? Okay.
And I'm sorry, what was the square footage of, did you say 4,500?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did
Yeah.
that number come from?
4521.
It's the sketch of the house. First floor and second floor, is your second floor finished?
It is finished, but it's, when I purchased the house, it was 3,483 square feet, I believe.
That's on the main level.
Right, and so the second, it's not 1,100 square feet finished up there. It's not near that.
We have 1036.
That's not correct. That may have been what was originally planned to do, but that's not the square footage that's up there.
Mr. Chairman, we can send staff out to take a look at that.
Do what, sir?
We can send staff out to take a look at that to verify the square footage.
Yeah, I like that. If you don't
I
mind.
don't think it's that much, that's not, that wasn't the in plan, but no, I don't mind it. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
If I had gotta go to work, can I leave? Then I'll get the information later.
Yes, sir. We're going to make a decision in just a few minutes, but you're welcome to stay or leave. It's,
What, 30 minutes?
I can't say.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to hang around for, but, you know, we'll get to it in orderly fashion.
But I'll get my information later.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
You have a great day.
it. Thank you.
Tab 14, parcel ID number 091051104, Shannon Powell.
Good morning, Mr. Powell.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing fine.
Did we skip tab 13?
14.
No, we skipped 13. This is staff, right? Okay, okay.
Oh, sorry, one more time.
Thank you.
That's no better.
Thank you, Donnie. Well, good morning, Board, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to come before you and share the burden of proof for our home. I really just want to simplify. You should have a copy of the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. I had sent that in earlier. Now, that's not in the handouts, but that was what you had received whenever we had made the initial appeal. I believe that would have been a 4-page document. On that, I actually had the comps that were highlighted for the property. And then you could also look down, I believe it might have been on page 3. I had that circled, the cost approach if developed. That appraisal report being for a recent refinance just less than 1 year from today. So that was last summer on that appraisal report. But the two things, just to simplify, obviously you have that versus what the current listed fair market value based on the tax assessment by the county. That's listed at $536,200. I had offered back to the county in the appeal that it was almost $100,000 less than that, $457,658. So the two, just to simplify, the 2 points that I wanted to drive home were, number one, square footage that is listed for the home, and then the second would be land value, as I had done some comps and pulled up some things. So the first stapled page that you see is our home. And if you will pull that piece up, I have got highlighted for you the deeded acres on the top, number 27 Mallard Landing. And then if you flip over to page 2, of course, I've highlighted the assessed land, the year, and the assessed building. On page 3, I believe, is where the discrepancy would come in. It says total finished area, 3,373 square feet. And that is not accurate. We have 2,544 square feet that is finished on the main level of the house. There is a subgrade element to the house, which is a walkout basement that measures approximately 800 square feet, and that is unfinished. And I do not believe that was taken in consideration for the tax assessment for the home. So the discrepancy of the square footage for the home, based on what the tax assessment was, I believe would be the first issue. And then the second one was, and just to point that out, sorry, the second piece of stapled page that I had together for you was a comp at refi, and that would have been less than a year ago. The deeded acres on that was just under 1 acre. That should be listed as number 20 Mallard Landing. If you look on page 2, you can see the assessed land value at $166. That one is showing, and this is one of probably the most recent sales in the neighborhood. Again, they just pulled this as a comp. That was closer to 3,000 total finished square feet. The third page that I had pulled for you together, stapled, was the comp at the time of purchase of the home. And we purchased the home for $414,000. And our current value right now, based on Union County, is considerably larger than that, again, $536,000. So the comp at the time of purchase, and this kind of gets into my point number 2, which was the value of land discrepancy that's there. It says deeded acres 1.16, which is fairly close to ours. We're 1.3 acres. It'll be listed as number 22 Legacy on the Lake. And if you flip to the second page, they've got that property for assessed land at $53,000. And we could look at the fourth page if need be, but the standards for the value of land is a little confusing to me. Obviously, we do have lakefront property. I thank God for that. It feels like we're in a little garden spot, and I'm thankful for that. But I don't know that there's accuracy for the assessment of all the land value. As I go up and down the lake, and I didn't bore you with all of those different printouts, but it seems like everyone on our side of the lake, regardless of their acreage, is listed somewhere between $160,000 and $168,000. But if you get over to property number 3 that I had put the staple in for you to take a look at, that particular property, just to use as a comp, actually has lakefront access. And yet that standard did not apply to this particular property. They're simply listed at $53,000 for the land. The other one that I had pulled was actually across the lake that's located in the Piedmont School District in Unionville, and it is not located on our side of the lake, which is the Forest Hills School District. And so you could look at that. They have 2.5 acres, and on that second page, their land value is assessed at $183,000. And I have got almost half of that, and yet my land value is at $160,000+. So I don't necessarily understand the discrepancy for land values there. But those are my 2 primary points in closing. Number 1, the discrepancy on square footage, and then not fully understanding the land value evaluation. So thank you for your time.
Any questions, Mr. Powell?
Just a couple, Mr. Powell. You mentioned that you purchased the home for 414.
Yes, sir.
What was the month and date? Month and year?
That was March 29th, 2018.
Okay. And then you bring up a good point. I mean, in the appraisal, is good evidence too. I mean, to me, the discrepancy maybe more lies with the square footage differential there. Okay, so,
Sure.
which we can take up with the county, Brad.
If I may, we're showing 2,557 in the main area, which is not too far off from what the gentleman said. And we're showing a finished area in the basement of 816.
Right.
I think that's gonna be where the issue is.
Yeah.
It may be wise, who's the appraiser on this? Have you checked the property? Okay, it may be wise to table this until we can do a field visit
Yeah,
on that
because
property.
it's just
confirm that
difference in
basement.
finished and
Yeah.
unfinished. I
Would you
think.
mind doing that, Mr. Powell?
I certainly don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Because I
know
think
what
that's gonna
that
make-
detailed
that's
process
gonna
would
make-
include,
Yeah.
but
We'll table that one, and once they arrive at their new decision, then if you would like to reappeal, if you don't like that value, then you can come back before us.
sure. And I don't know that there was any difference between when we had purchased the home originally in 2018 versus the refi last summer of 2020. So that square footage should have remained the same on that, so I don't know
I'm
where the
just
discrepancy
looking,
lies.
what I was looking at was the square footage in your appraisal.
Yes, sir. And if
Which
you look
is
at that,
20
that first
25.
column, 2,544 square
Right,
feet.
right,
Yes,
right.
yes. And that's, the appraiser and I had a roundabout about that particular issue, about whether or not that could be used for the basement. They said absolutely not, that's sub-level. In fact, I believe they valued that somewhere between $25 and $35 a square foot for that sub-level. And then the garage was almost comparable to what was actually in that covered space in the basement. So, be what it may.
Okay. No offense, we hope we don't see you again.
Well, thank you. And just out of curiosity, with the land.
I see you in public, but not here.
With the land value, would that second issue with the land value, is there any explanation for that, or the county wants to address that? Okay, okay, Donnie. Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Powell, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you being agreeable.
Thank you.
Do you want to hear from the county on land value?
We could, yeah, let's do that. Let's hear from the county, Mr. Powell, regarding your land value, if you don't mind.
He said, address it all at one time.
Beg your pardon?
Can we wait on that?
Sure you can, yeah.
I can speak to him after the meeting.
Well, yeah, thank you so much.
We're done with all the hearings, so now we can start deliberations.
Yes, sir.
Can I just put one point out there? I was told this when I made my, Alan called me a couple weeks ago that the unfinished portion of my house, which is about 300 some square feet, so I think you guys have 4,100 square feet. My house is finished at like 3,850. I was told that didn't matter. But I hear that from everybody else in these conversations, that unfinished portions shouldn't be. And I think 100% it does matter, because if somebody buys my home, they're not going to value that extra 300 and some square feet at $170 a square foot. They're not going to add that and go, oh, well, I can finish it. So
Okay.
I think it does matter, but that was one point I wanted to put out there too, before you guys deliberate. Our home square foot should be like 3,850, around there.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, welcome to stay, but no comments will be heard at this point other than doing the decision process.
Tab number 7, parcel ID number 060-48243.
Only note I really had on this one was, there were a number of comps. Maybe, trying to think if, after the appraisal that the taxpayer had, that were later in the year, kind of in that August, December or November 2020 timeframe. It appeared to be, it didn't sound like the taxpayer saw the county information. Is that, am I correct on that? Is that the way y'all understood it?
Mhm.
I mean, just based on what I'm seeing in the comps that the county's provided. And of course, the taxpayer had the appraisal. Just trying, but it was. It was the appraisal was 455. I'm trying to make sure I'm right on that, though. Yeah, 455 in July of 2020.
Mhm.
But then that second
I'm
run of
gonna
comps-
suggest one of two things, okay, or suggest two things, right? Number one, we table it and let him review the other comps that he did not have, and he and the county get back together. Or number two, we split the difference kind of and say, we'll suggest a tax value of 475. And that's not dead in the middle, but that's close enough.
Yeah. I would just soon table it and let the county review those comps with the taxpayer. I feel like the comps support the value that the county has on it, but maybe give the taxpayer the benefit of just looking at these comps, because there's a number of them, it looks like, that are after his appraisal, and maybe with an explanation of what's going on in the market, you know, from like that May, June timeframe to the end of this year, and we're having to get as close as we can to 1/1/21, which I feel like the comps probably bear out. I mean, I hadn't gone through these piece by piece, but I would like for him to see the comps.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do whatever the board's pleasure, if you want to table it, but know that if you table it, it will come back around to the hearing again. Y'all have to make a decision on it at a later date.
Yeah. But I think
Well,
it'd
that'd be up to
quick.
him, I think, too. Here's the way I think, I'd love for you to have all the information. But
The comps that you're talking about, none of them have basements.
okay, so we want you to look at them and talk to the county. But with the same information, we're gonna side with the county, okay? But I think it's fair enough to let him look at those and review those comps.
So do we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
I'll motion, yeah.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Table it, okay.
That just means it's tabled.
Give him
Beg your pardon, sir?
Just means it's tabled until.
The county's gonna be back in touch with you.
Tab number 8, parcel ID number 060455178.
Ben, let me ask you a question on this one. All right, so, Mr.
Which one are we
Goodwin
looking at here?
has problems with his house.
Okay.
He's telling us that the renovations or the repairs will start in June. So he'll get a bill late this summer if we don't do anything for the 683,100, right?
That's correct.
Okay. After the repairs are done, can we revisit his property to see they've been done and reassess his property at that time?
If I may, we normally, if there's a situation like this, we will reduce the value of the property. But as soon as those repairs are done, then we'll create a task and routinely go out and check on these properties to ensure they're completed, the renovations have been completed. And once they are, we bring it back up to 100% of market. If it's done, a lot of times they're done within the same year, so there's no adjustments made. So if a renovation starts after January 1 and they're completed before the next January 1, then there's never an adjustment of value. In this situation, we would reduce the value now. So this current tax bill, as of January 1, he would get a reduced value, and then we would increase it once it's completed, back up to market value. So if y'all would, whatever value you think would compensate the damages to the property, then we could reduce it that amount, and we would revisit it at the appropriate time and increase it back to 100%.
From a logistics standpoint, obviously I can't make a recommendation, I'm not on the board. It would be, the only thing you could consider at this point, there's two things. One, no change, because I'm assuming the work is going to be completed by the end of the year if everything goes according to plan, according to what Mr. Godwin said. It was a good one, I'm sorry. The other option would be a temporary 1-year adjustment for costs, for an estimated cost to cure. That's on the board to determine that value. And with an order, part of that decision to be that the county revisit the property for the 2022 tax year.
That was my question too, you know, and I kind of understand why he doesn't have documentation on the cost with it being covered under warranty. I'm really fine with his opinion of value for that 1 year. I mean, taking it from the 683 down to the 615. I was thinking about 75 grand, just pulling that out of the air as far as cost to cure, and that'd be on there for 1 year. And then the county revisit it.
He's gonna have some
Major.
problems moving,
Yeah.
working around, living, Is that a recommendation?
Yeah, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you.
Dutch, was that an even 615 that you made a motion for?
Yeah, if that could be put on there, I mean, I think that's, even before I kind of looked back at my notes on his number, that was kind of what I was thinking on the cost to cure number.
Good luck with that, Mr. Goodwin.
Tab number 11, parcel ID number 071449198.
I mean, it looks like to me on this one, there were plenty of comps that were close by.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have, I didn't see any real evidence to hang my hat on from the taxpayer. I mean, and the county had good comps that were close by. I mean, Mike, you have any questions
Yeah, I
on
make a motion, we accept the county's value
Yeah.
on this property.
that?
I hear a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, like sign no. Thank you.
And that was on Mr. Barina's property, is that
Yeah,
correct?
Mr. Brino.
Yeah.
We'll have staff follow up with him as well, to see if he may qualify for the elderly exclusion program.
Good.
Yeah, he's been
See
there
if-
25 plus
yeah,
years.
and he
I
said
think
he's retired, so that makes me think there's some
Right.
possibility there he may.
Okay. Good.
If you meet the requirements. I knew that.
Tab number 12, parcel ID number 050390034.
Yeah, I think we've already kind of decided, I don't know that we formally did it, but the motion was to table it for the county to go back out and measure the property. Yep. And so I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye,
Aye.
like sign no.
Tab number 14, parcel ID number 091051004.
I think that was the same thing. We're
Same
gonna,
thing. I think it was a discrepancy maybe in finished and unfinished basement. And, you know, what the understanding is, I know, we realize the county can't get out and look at every single property. I think the taxpayer might want to be made aware of that that's physically impossible to do. But, so I'll make the motion, we table it.
I hear a second. Mike, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. I'm sorry, ma'am?
I think somebody was gonna provide me with the comps.
Donnie was going to talk to you.
Okay, should I wait here?
I can give you my copy right now.
I think Donnie said he was going to talk.
He's out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's working on.
He's out there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, we're now ready.
Interesting.
If he doesn't have your comps, come back in, I'll give you a copy.
Catch any fish behind your house, Mr. Powell?
Well, none yesterday. Got my line wet though.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Couple of boys. Now,
that's
I gotta tell
important.
you, my youngest one, they still believe that half the television is in black and white, so they watch the old Disney Zorro and Davy Crockett. So my youngest one tells me this morning, said, "Daddy, go give them what for, Davy?" And I said, "No, I'm gonna go with Abraham Lincoln, and we're gonna catch more flies with honey." So I appreciate it.
Well
Thank you,
done.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Good luck.
and then Donnie will have an explanation. Okay, perfect. And then a retrial or reappeal?
It depends on what you think.
Right, thank you.
Oh. Okay.
Going back to have one.
We're going to do staff recs, we got them all in line, if y'all want to do them all at one time.
Can we do, I'm gonna say, can we do, all four that approve, at one time?
We actually have all of them listed,
Yeah,
so call them out, Bill.
okay, we're doing staff recs
Staff
now?
recs, tabs,
Top,
no, just call them.
okay, tab number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10, 15, 16, and 17. All our staff recs.
Do I hear a motion we accept staff recommendations?
Yeah, so moved.
Second, anyway? Second, Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like sign no, thank you.
Okay, we ready to adjourn?
There was
I'm
one
sorry.
that wasn't called out, number 13. It was the last minute.
That was gonna be rescheduled, apparently, it's not a staff rec, it will be rescheduled.
Oh,
She didn't have her information.
okay.
So she asked.
Do we need to, number 5, where it withdrew, do we need to vote on that one? Are we good?
No, because they withdrew before the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So now we're ready to adjourn.
We ready
Yeah,
to
do I hear a
adjourn
motion
now?
that we adjourn?
So moved.
Dutch, do I hear a second from anybody? Mike?